Right. So, as you guys know, that this is my third go around with this, and I am not even sure what to emphasize or what to carry out. Some feedback. I get some feedbacks, and one of the things it's a lot, and what to emphasize. But as I said, the point is to see Christ. And I believe when we see Christ, hear his word, the Spirit start to work through us to apply the word in our various situation. So I want to start a little background again, differently, and then we can go down to the text again. Okay? Now, I'm gonna title this a weird title. It's called Mica. That's the title, Mica. So, Pastor, if you want to ask about the title, we were having a conversation about names, and I want to start there. And let's read one verse, verse 12. Um, it says, and Mephibosheth has a young son whose name was Micah, and all who lived in Ziba house became Mephibosheth's servant. And Mephibosheth have a young son whose name was Micah. That phrase is literally is like a journal. If you were to say what is the journal of his life, that name is his journal. For Micah means who is like God. It's a question, but it's a rhetorical question. It doesn't need an answer. It is worship with a question. It's like he looked back at his life and where he has been now, sitting in the king's house, in the king's palace, and he name his kid or he jot in his journal when you think of everything and says, Micah, who is like God? This is important because I'm going to give you a little background about names. So if we read in First Chronicle, the line of Saul, it says Saul of a son, and Kish was the father of Saul, and Saul the father of Jonathan. Jonathan's son called Maribal. Jonathan's son called Maribal, meaning the name that they give to Mephibosheth at birth was not Mephibosheth. It was Maribal. Mephibosheth means the one who hens shame or the one who extinguished shame. Maribal means to contend with, to strive, to argue, to fight. So Saul family or whosoever name who we call Mephibosheth Maribal. Now a little background on the word Maribal. In Exodus 17, after they come out of Egypt, the people start to strive with Moses. And when Moses give them water, before Moses give them water from the rock, they want to stone Moses. And he said they strive with Moses. And Moses named the place Meribah. And it means because they quarrel and says, is the Lord among us? The question then, Mariba, are those who know the history of Saul's family who know the history. It is like they're asking their name, is God among us? That was Mephibosheth before we know him as Mephibosheth. one who questioned the very existence of God in their life. So this is where we get it from. The one who questioned to the one who says, who is like God? And that is a chasm we want to look at today. That is the bridge we want to gap. Is God here? Till we get to the place, Mica, who is like God. That's the journey we want to take in this passage. So just as a little background on it, right? Now, I don't want to sit here and go through again. So my question for you tell me from Sunday, what do you think was the reason or what prompted David in chapter 1 to ask a question? What prompted David? What was it that prompted him to ask that question? The question says, is there any left of the house of Saul that I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake? What is it that prompted David? I am looking for. Think about David, think about the situation. What is it that prompted David?
You're asking what was it that prompted David to ask, is there anybody who's
Yep.
still around from the house of
So,
Saul?
so let's look at that. What was it that prompted him? If you guys waiting for me to sit and preach, teach this again, I mean,
I
anybody?
think for some, I'll say,
Well, he
I'll,
was
I'll
keep.
think, I'll say for some that do not know the background that David, we know David, we know King David, and then he was the son-in-law of Saul, and Saul was very jealous of him, and like Geoff said, he was wicked, man. He was trying to do everything in his power to get rid of him. But David and Jonathan, who was Saul's son, David and Jonathan were tight, tight, tight. Like they rocked together, even though Jonathan knew his dad was a hot mess and was trying to kill his best friend. Jonathan and David made a promise, a covenant, right? Geoff said Jonathan understood it wasn't about him being ruler next. He understood that David was called for this position, right? So much so that Jonathan told David, "You got to go because my he's after you." So because of the promise or the covenant or the agreement that David and Jonathan made, Jonathan said, "Remember, please remember me. Remember this day. Remember the love. Remember how I'm covering you and keeping you despite of what my father is doing. Can you remember me?" So I'm just gonna put that out there because some people need a little. Everybody ain't read that part of the Bible, so that's why I'm trying to bring us up to what's happening here. There was
Yeah.
a promise, there was a covenant made between best friends, and David is now honoring that promise that he made to his friend.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks for the background. But think about it. He's on the throne. He has no reason to do it. Nobody can hold him accountable. Why did they do it? Yeah, but what's in him? What can we say about him? What
Well,
should I say? Loyalty. Okay.
I mean, he's got grace,
He's grace. Okay.
grace for others, and love and grace and mercy, like Jesus. Even though I know Jesus wasn't around yet.
All right. So what I'm thinking, I want to use that's I'm using the word the king. That's why I keep focused because I'm talking about David, but I'm talking about the king. I don't want you to just focus on David. I want to think about the king. And I'm thinking Ephesians 1 right now. Ephesians 1. For example, it's after his own will. Nobody prompted him or reminded. It was after his own will. It was after his free kindness. It was after his own riches and goodness, right? It is own integrity within. It was of his faithfulness, promise keeping, right? So, what does he see? So, let me ask another question. What does the question then teach us about the family of Saul or the dynasty of Saul? What does the question tell us about the dynasty of Saul at this point? He was a king, a family. He posed a question. What does that tell us about, at this point, Saul dynasty at this point in the story?
That there's not many of his family around anymore.
Yeah.
Like they've kind of destructed.
So here's, yes. So it to the point that the king need to send out a search party, try to find out, does anyone exist of this dynasty? It come to nothing. But here the contrast. Saul was given this gift from the Lord, this dynasty. But it was temporary. This gift was supposed to be temporary. He wanted to be permanent. This whole thing, he was fighting to hold on something that was temporary. He was fighting, pushing to hold on something God gave him that was only to be temporary. He go to this great length, wanted to be permanent. And now it come to ruin, like nobody, it is like ruin. So the question tells us that the family was like gone. So the king asks about the Saul family. We talk about Saul, PG does brought up Saul and David conflict. We talk about it. There's any question on that I need to go over? Does anybody not sure about that conflict, that story? Okay. The king called a person called Ziba in verse 3 and 4. So the first search, so this is a double search. The first search is that they get Ziba, and then Ziba come to the king, and the king decided now to basically learn that their Saul have a son, Jonathan. Sorry, Mephibosheth. The king about to send some people to get Mephibosheth. Ziba, we know Ziba, and the word sent is the same word as the word apostle. So the king decided to send them. Why do you think it is important that the king frame the message based on the merit of someone else and the kindness of God? Why was this important? Let's think about the story. The king, okay, another question. What is the gospel in this story? What is the gospel in this past chapter? What is the gospel in this chapter? Anybody? What was the good news? All right. Let's change tactics. Like this is rough. You guys not talking to me. You guys are not talking to me. All right. My questions seem like they're kind of all right. The gospel in this message was I will show the house of Saul kindness of God for Jonathan's sake. The good news. So think about the house of Saul. Think about the house of Saul. If they heard that David's going to be kind, that the king doesn't want to be kind willy-nilly, is that really good news? Or the king promote them? Oh, king promote me from cook to head chef. Is that good news to the house of Saul? Or the king bless me or whatever. Is that be good news to the house of Saul? No. The house of Saul is believe they're under the sentence of death. They believe they are wanted felons under the sentence of death. That is their belief system. So for them, what would be good news? What would be gospel news?
I'll say the good news will be they're debt free. Get their debt paid.
Their debt is paid. Who paid the debt in the story? You understand, but who's the one is a debt payer? Who's the debt payer in the story?
David.
Jonathan.
If it,
Jonathan.
okay.
Jonathan, we're doing this for Jonathan. Jonathan did the work. The one that did the work is Jonathan. David is carrying out what Jonathan did. He is like a pay forward, right? Does anybody don't see the gospel in the story? Anybody just give me no or something if you don't see the gospel, because it's important that we.
Can you explain what you mean? I don't know if anybody else doesn't know that. What do you mean when you say can you see the gospel? Like, what does that mean?
All right. So the one that been sent, he's gonna send Ziba and a crew to go to Lodebar to get Mephibosheth or anyone from the house of Saul. But the house of Saul believe that they are under judgment and death. They're under condemnation and death. So what message would be good news for them? What would be good news
for Saul's family?
For Saul's family.
Good news for Saul's family is that it's not temporary.
What's not temporary?
That he's king, that it's permanent.
Yeah, but you see, they believe that the king is the enemy.
So good news for Saul's family would be that David is a shepherd and that's it. Maybe? No?
Yeah, the good news is your grand Jonathan did me. I have a covenant with Jonathan. We have a path together. And I hold him, basically. I hold Jonathan to do you guys a favor, to show kindness to you. I hold Jonathan to show kindness to you. The good news is I won't kill you because I've made a vow to Jonathan to be kind to you. Do you see? Does anybody see that? Anybody doesn't see that? Because this is important. This is the gospel there.
So somebody posed a question, but if Jesus isn't here yet, because this is an Old Testament story, so what Geoff is doing is saying, can you see Jesus in an Old Testament situation?
Who is it that asked the question?
It was under Sarah and Q. Are you able to see Jesus in this story?
Brilliant question. So read something with me. So when the apostles gonna go preach in the New Testament, they did not have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts, Romans, Galatians. They have to explain the gospel from Genesis to Malachi. So when they're explaining Christ, the New Testament wasn't written. So all Christ was explained, it was what we call the Old Testament. That's all the Bible that they have. So they would have to explain Christ from the Old Testament. The whole Bible is a one story. It's about Christ, about the gospel of redemption. That is the only story in the Bible. And it is manifest in small stories. Little piece of it is manifest in different stories through the Bible. Okay? That's how we can see Christ. So Christ is concealed in this way. So the message of the gospel, someone else did the works. Jonathan did the merit. David want to carry out this kindness to Jonathan's family. But Jonathan's family think that David is their enemy. Jonathan's family, our Saul family now, believe that they're under the sentence of death. There's nothing, if the king catch them, they are going to die. So this is why the news that they heard from these Ziba, these sent one, have to be important. You have to communicate what the good news is. Any message, any personal testimony will not work for a Mephibosheth. Let me say it again. Any personal testimony will not work for a Mephibosheth. The person who's under the sentence of death don't care about, hey, we come with this new cart. Look at it. It have 10 horse pulling it and new rims. Who cares? I'm going to die. The king going to kill me. Hey, the king bless my family. Yeah, my family tried to destroy the king. How does that help me? The message got to be specific. Does anybody not see the gospel? So Ziba, the king sent Ziba and them to Lodabar, right? So here they are sent by the king to proclaim the good news to the house of Saul. Are we see the parallel between what Christ did for us, the gospel message to the world? Are we seeing the parallel here? No question for you. Mephibosheth, or before it's called Mephibosheth, Maribal, anger, strife, fight. This person. Why was he in Lodabar? What happened? Anybody?
After Saul and Jonathan died, I think it was his caretaker, was grabbing him to flee, and she dropped him, and he that's how he got his disability. And at that point, that's when like she took him to Lodabar. But they were fleeing after Jonathan and Saul were killed after David was taken over as king.
So why were they running? Remember, because why are they running? Why was the family running in this case?
Because typically when a new bloodline takes over, they want to wipe away the old bloodline to establish their kingdom.
So first, we realized they were making some assumption about this king. So basically, they did not know this king. We could say that, right? They thought this king was just like every other king. So they're making some assumption. They have some, I would call, some assumed theology, some assumed belief about the king without really knowing the king. Anybody see that? No? Yes?
Question.
Good. Yes.
So would you say that the in one way of the story is the gospel is like the David is keeping the covenant to the covenant that he made to Saul and Jonathan,
Yeah.
like just keeping that promise,
Yes.
uh, fulfilling that promise, like how Christ will have fulfilled his promise to us. Would you say like that would be the gospel in that story?
That would be the gospel. So the message, remember, the gospel is news, right? The gospel is not opinion. The gospel is not suggestion. It's news. So the gospel is news, and it's good news, right? It is news. It's not opinion. It's not suggestion. It's not what. It's news. It is good news. So if you hear and the news is not good, it's not the gospel. It's good news, and in this case, for somebody who believe the king is their enemy. The king is their enemy. What would be the good news? Except right? So in this case, the good news is they did not know the king have a covenant. The king had a covenant to become kind to them. They did not know this. This is the reason they're running from the king. They don't know the message that there's a covenant. The king make a covenant that the king want to fulfill the covenant. So when they heard that the king rise or establish his kingdom, they flee. They don't want, they just have this belief system in their head about a king, assumption about the king. The king is there to destroy their wealth and freedom and life. They don't see the king as a good blesser to them. So they are reacting based on impulse and false information and their perceived belief. So the good news is that the king says, I have a covenant. I'm going to be kind to you. The kindness going to be on the character of God, but it is for Jonathan's sake. That is the good news. Okay. Any question? Please post it. Stop me, pause me. All right. So they're in Lodabar. What we learn from the text about Lodabar? What can we say? Give me some description about Lodabar.
At the bar in Lodabar.
We'll get to that. But some description about Lodabar. So think about, go into the text, think about the backwood of Appalachia. Go into the backwoods of Appalachia. See that dirt hut, a one road, it's not a lane, it's not a street, it's a path. See it, see a hut, and understand there that, and when you picture in your mind 3,000 years ago, off the grid, nothing, no paved road, no, you're in Lodabar, destitute. Can you see it in your picture, in your mindset?
So load up. So you're okay. I see dusty. I see a hut. I don't see no electricity. I don't see. It's just. Alwyn said it's Milwaukee. It's horrible. He.
It's Milwaukee,
That,
okay? All right. And,
but
and
I
anybody
see.
else? And what? So this is where when you study, you step into the picture. What do you see when I say Lodabar? They flee to Lodabar, right? So now think about it. He's running. He is like a convict. He is living like a convict, a runaway. Get this in your mind. So we see that his condition, what we say the condition was, what the Bible teaches us about his condition. His condition, what was his physical condition? What we know about it? Anyone? Anything about his physical condition? What we know about is
You talking
or
about
his master status? What do we know about his master status?
So if they're answering you, you can see it.
Or
You're talking about who's he that you're referencing?
Mephibosheth. We're talking about Mephibosheth here.
He's lame.
Oh, lame. Okay. So we can use our play on that word, lame. So there's a word play right there. We could use that as out of touch, right? Irrelevant. Like you could word play the word lame, but let's just think it. We all were paralyzed, handicapped, right? What are descriptive? Retarded, people call it. What are descriptive can we use for lame or paralyzed?
Well, text says he was crippled in his feet.
Crippled. Yeah, okay. So awesome, EJ, crippled. Anything else? Okay. All right. So here we know that he was 5 years old. He's 5 years old, crippled, moved to somebody said Milwaukee. I didn't say that. Somebody say that. Okay. That's terrible. But anyway, so here he is an undeveloped country, what they call a third world country, no social support. And he's in this house. It is like somebody put him up. Makir. Goodness of Makir. Anyway, what are some other what I call social struggles that he may have? Let's talk. What are some of the social struggle that we know people with disability face? And remember, it's a society that is based on agriculture. And even to get a spouse, we know you got to work 7 years like Jacob did, or try to kill 200 Philistines like David did. To get a spouse, you need to do these things. So what do you think about it going on for him socially as he grow?
Insecurity.
Insecurity from give me some example. Where the insecurity come from?
Maybe, I mean, it sounds like if he was walked different or was injured.
Remember, he couldn't walk, right?
Yeah, I mean, even just his family bloodline, the way his family was talked about,
Isolation,
shame, things like that.
Anybody else? What should I say? Isolation. Anybody else? Anything else? Isolate. Go ahead.
When I think about it, I'd say probably just ignored by everybody.
So lonely. So in let's talk about this. In society, people who have limited movements in their limb are limited mobility. People associate with that intellectual limitation. People think that people who are crippled is not intellectually brilliant because as society assume physical limitation is also intellectual limitation. And for historically, people with disability does not get the education. So a question, depression, so isolation, depression, someone like hopelessness. Why was he hopeless? And exponent hopelessness.
I guess I'm going deeper into like what the family trauma and things like that, but like hopelessness as far as the limitations that he has, and what he comparing himself to others and the family bloodline, things like that.
Right, so he have nothing to stand on, literally. So as I said, life for him was a drag, both physical drag and emotional drag in Lodabar. Literally, to drag yourself across the ground, you would end up with bruise and cuts and dirt all the time. Life was a drag. Okay? Someone said depression. True. What about emotional trauma. Emotional trauma related to his family. What are the trauma of his family, and what does that relate? Emotional trauma. Can you think about family? What happened to his family actually? They said I said they got shot, die early, right? They got shot, they got stabbed. The grandpa of mental illness, of paranoia. His son, which was Mephibosheth's uncle, his name is Ishbosheth, also have mental illness of paranoia. Because so we see mental illness in the grandpa, in the uncle, and and all them got, the grandpa got um, killed and dismembered, and the uncle got killed and decapitated. So few years apart. So we can see the trauma. This come from maybe, who is that? Fear, embarrassment. Someone put fear of what? Fear of what?
I was thinking, if, fear of it being genetic, like whatever happened to him, could it happen to me
Yeah. Yes.
or my dad,
Okay. So
Could be paranoid.
paranoid. Explain.
Okay, actually, just to piggyback off what Sarah said, like, just that in fear, just being paranoid that somebody could come after you at any time, to end your life
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
yeah.
The kingdom, people can be out there to get you. So he lived in a hyper vigilant state. No, in medical, when people live in this state, increased stress. Stress releases a thing called cortisol. Cortisol destroy the body, right? It is compounding. Its problem is compounding. What are some things that people do? How did he describe himself, by the way? What in the text, how did he describe his own state? How did he see himself? Look
A
at verse,
dead dog.
a dead dog. That means you have low self-esteem, low self-worth, a terrible outlook on life. What are some things that people do to bring relief? When people are in this state, what do something they do? Some say drink, some say drugs. Okay. Anybody else?
Sex.
X, yes. So here, when people they look for validation. So these things, what he lacked is to look for validation, fight, overreactive, yes, shoplift. And this is what I said. Mephibosheth was low with low self-esteem in Lodebar. And he behind bar are at the bar in Lodebar. Okay? So this is the human condition as a result of the fall. This is the human condition as a result of the fall. Broken, broke, destitute. Okay? And I said sometimes even suicidal. The why me? Why me, God? Like Job. Okay? Guilt, shame, what I could be. If this didn't happen to be what I could be versus what I am. People live and stuck in Lodebar. As my wife was saying, this is one of our favorite words, Lodebar. It is a state of being displaced, like, yeah, things are rough. We're in Lodebar. We're low in Lodebar. And you know people there. But what we see the king give us, the king give a cure. It was the gospel, right? So quickly, they give the gospel, they bring the gospel message to him. He come before the king. I think that's verse 5. He come before the king. And the king, let me just summarize it. Give 4 things. Time sake, let me just summarize them since we can't dive there. 4 things. 4 things happened to him when he come before the king. More quickly summarize them, we can just quickly run through. Ready? First, the king give him protection. Do not fear. Protection. Don't fear the king. The king, he thought the king was his biggest enemy. The king was his problem. Remember, the king was his problem. And I always say salvation. If you don't see God as our problem before Christ, we don't understand salvation. Protection. The king protect him. Do not fear. Second, the king provides. The king provides. The king give him an inheritance. Food that is stable. Third, the king given protection, provision. The king give him a position. Your son. You'll be like a son at my table. Now, if you look around the king in chapter 8, the people around the king table, army general, secretary of state, priests and stuff, he have position. You will be like a son. It's a position. He said Mephibosheth also was over the house of Mica. So Ziba family, Mephibosheth was over the house of Ziba. And lastly, he get progeny. I think progeny, that's what I wrote it. Yeah, progeny. It's a child. He gets a lineage. Protection, he didn't have in Lodabar. Provision, he did not have in Lodabar. Protection, provision, position, and a progeny, our family, a son. He come before the king, and the king provide these things for him. This is the legacy, or someone said the king gave him legacy. Now we see him, though he think he was a dog, now he have a family. He was an outcast. If he believed he was going to be single for the rest of his life, that end. The king provide companionship. Or being with the king, he gets companionship. And the pastor, he has identity. Yes, he have identity. So remember the name? The name here, Mephibosheth. I said the king was the first one to call him that name in the story. The king was the first name to call. Curse breaker. Shame stopper. Come before the king. This is what we are. The curse stop here. This is where curse come to die. Curse, this legacy of death that plague the family. Mental illness that plague the family. Poverty that plague the family. Social outcast that plague the family. Trauma that plague the family. The death of men that plague the family. It die here. Mephibosheth. That's who we are. And we have to get to the place that we can say, Mica. We get
This sorry to cut you off. No, this also shows like it changes the trajectory of his bloodline as well.
Oh yeah. And if you read in First Chronicle 8, you will see Mephibosheth have a bloodline now. If you go to First Chronicle 8, you will see that Mephibosheth, that means Saul have a bloodline, Jonathan have a bloodline. That which was dead and could not found. We see them listed in the Bible again. They come to the king. Any rock to riches? Someone say he's rock to riches. Yes. Any question? I think I'm gonna any question. So let me let me connect it to the cross. So here how the story unfold for us. In this case, Christ has have a covenant with the Father before the world began. And as Mephibosheth, the covenant was made before Mephibosheth was born, Christ have a covenant before we were born. And Christ, as Jonathan accomplished something, Christ accomplished something with the Father. And the Father decided to fulfill to us based on what Christ did. The Father gonna bestow kindness on us based on what Christ did. What Christ did was at the cross. And the Father decided to bestow kindness. Ephesians said, according to the riches of his grace, according to his good pleasure, according to the counsel of his will. He's gonna do this based on what Christ did. Mephibosheth is just a recipient of it. He don't bring nothing to the table. He is crippled. And the king taking him, when he accepted, he was still crippled. He didn't cease to be crippled. There was no like, oh, there's a miracle to fix you. Like, no, he is crippled. He still can't contribute nothing. This is the story. This is how it relates to us. This is the gospel. This is the gospel, the message that we believe. It is done for us based on what Christ did.